Hello everybody, SlimKirby here, and welcome to what is going to be the finale of the Lemmings project. That's right, the rest of the game will be shown in this video. Didn't need more than one video actually, so we're just going to go ahead and end the project here. This project's been a lot of fun to go through, and I'll have more to say about this later as we're going throughout the video. As I've stated before, this will be post-commentary. Just because I kind of want to talk about these levels, and these levels are pretty difficult. So there was bound to be failed takes of this no matter what. So I found it would be better just to not really even worry about that. And that way, if there is any downtime, I can kind of discuss all of the other things I wanted to talk about before we actually end this project properly. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the Sunsoft levels of the Lemmings project. Let's go. Okay, let's go ahead and get things started with Sunsoft Level 1. We only have 4 Lemmings and we have to save only one of them. The challenge of this level, there's not really that much of a challenge. It's just use the tools you have to figure out how to solve this contraption. And obviously, since we have to save one of them, we have 3 bombers. We're going to be using some bombers to figure this out, and if you couldn't figure it out from just the look of this level alone, yeah, you need exactly what you need, and the solution pretty much writes itself out. You just kind of have to find the right timing and when to actually activate your bombers. If anything, I got kind of lucky that the second guy actually blew up when he did. But yeah, once you do that, make your final lemming a climber, or a athlete rather, and then just send him to the very bottom so he can go to the exit and solve the level. Basically one of those that you'll get after just a bunch of trial and error, really. But yeah, that's level 1 solved, and next up we're going to move to Sunsoft Special 2. This is probably, basically of the Sunsoft levels, I'd say that there's actually like 3 hard ones and 2 ones that are, you know, they're interesting in how you get to their solutions, but I wouldn't necessarily call them hard. This is definitely one of the hard ones, because you have to do this in a very interesting way, as we'll find out here very shortly. So we have Lemmings coming from 2 sides. We're going to be upgrading the release rate to 77 immediately, and we're going to be kind of using some we all fall down strats here, but in a much different way. We're going to be using these lemmings to dig down in order to create steps for the other lemmings that are, you know, coming out of the exit still. And again, like I said, this is a very interesting way to do this. I was honestly kind of blown away when I first saw and figured out this solution. But yeah, this is pretty much what you gotta do, and this is just one of those levels where, you know, over time, it's going to get frustrating because you'll do one thing too early or one thing too late, and that could quite literally mess up the entire solution. But yeah, you need to bomb that first digger, just so you can kind of get everyone to walk up. And from there, you pretty much just create the endless staircase to the very end, and that's pretty much all you do. You definitely want to make sure you get your lemmings all out in time. And once you kind of got the release rate all the way up, this is where it gets tricky, because you'll be kind of dealing with a bunch of lemmings at once. So you just have to kind of watch carefully that you not only dig at the right place, but that you also just actually dig. Because if you wait too long, they're going to create a wall that your lemmings won't be able to climb up. They'll just bonk and then walk the other way, and could cause you to redo the level just from that alone. So you have to be kind of persistent, and I don't want to say this is luck-based by any means, but you know, you just kind of have to get the right rhythm and just have patience. This is a very hard level. I say it's probably one of the hardest levels of the game. But we are in the final difficulty after all, the final 5-level difficulty, so, you know, at least it makes sense that the difficulty is challenging here, as opposed to, you know, level 26 or 7 of taxing being hard than pretty much all of Mayhem. I'm sorry, I'm still bitter about Triple Trouble when I probably shouldn't be. But as you can see, I actually kind of got off sync there, but thankfully it was just enough to still make this work. So there is a little bit of leeway, it's just not much. And like, you're going to be in a case where, just due to the time limit alone, not all the lemmings are going to get there. Definitely not. So as long as you get the 80% required, you should be good. And I think I did that, so we should be pretty good to go here. Obviously we'll lose some lemmings, but that's just the way it is sometimes. Unfortunately, the lemmings are the poor souls that must suffer for these puzzles. But yeah, that's pretty much Sunsoft level 2. I did have a couple of hiccups on this level. This was not my first take. Honestly, if there were any first takes, they were for the first level and the fourth level. The third level and the fifth level obviously gave me some trouble as well. But for this one, it was just basically retrying until I got it right. The solution is pretty much the only solution that would work for this level. So there we go, we saved one extra lemming too, so that's kind of nice. The level 2 is done. Let us move on to level 3, which is another one of the hard levels. And this one's hard just due to timing. You have to do things pretty exactly, and if you kind of miss an input or something, that could be very bad, and you could be starting an entire level over just for one missed input at the very end. Because this is a level where you'll need pretty much all of your tools. If you lose all your tools too early, you can't complete this level because you need every single thing here in order to succeed. So we're going to let our second lemming dig right here. And then the first one's going to turn around. So we're going to put him there. And if this happens, we did everything just right. So that's good. As long as, you know, the lemmings can still walk to the right. The first lemming is actually going to dig over here on top of the big ball, in a way where he'll just kind of dig straight down to the ground. Next thing we're going to do is, we didn't have to do that right then and there, I just went ahead and did it just to kind of show you what we're going to be pretty much working with here. We need to put all of these lemmings in these little compartments, and we need to put them in a way where there's basically one lemming per container. So you can't have like more than one in one container, otherwise it'll be just enough splat height. And as you can see, we want our lemmings to dig again when they're in the middle of the container, so they kind of dig through that little spike that's kind of jutting out there. That spike is the difference between splat height and not splat height. So if you miss that spike, or if you dig too close to the wall, you will die. So you need to be sure that you're kind of digging accurately. Definitely use the pause button to kind of buffer things a little bit if that helps you. Obviously this is probably easier on computer just because of the nature of clicking and whatnot. It's definitely pretty tricky with controller, but I did make it work here, so it wasn't really too bad. So if you've done the math, you'll see that we're not going to have enough containers or diggers to make this all work the way you think it's going to work. So we're actually not done once we kind of use all of our dig tasks here, because well, there's something else we got to do. And I will say, it is kind of interesting the way this works, just because it's not something you would really expect. Like, you see what's going on, you're like, okay, well, this is a no-brainer. But there's going to be one lemming that won't be able to go into these boxes. So we're going to have to use that lemming in a different way, and that lemming is actually going to be our savior here. We need him to dig through this long spike right there while we put the other lemming in this container. And once we do that, we'll use that other lemming to kind of build forward, and then we go over here to this part of the level. But again, just kind of showing this off, showing what we have to work with here. All of our lemmings are still intact, they're still alive. This is where, again, it gets kind of tricky. So we're going to wait until he bonks, and then bash through there. This way he'll get to the other side under the steel. Now we have to wait for this guy to finish up his job so he can move forward with the final tasks. Is what I would be saying if he survived. See, this is what I mean. You have to be very, very exact. That guy was just a pixel too far to the right. If he was 1 pixel to the left, he would have been fine. He would have landed on that slant, on that icicle crystal or whatever. But instead, he died. And I have to redo the entire level again. It sucks when a pixel screws up your progress. 1 small little pixel. So I'm going to go ahead and cut to this part. We're going to try again. This looks a lot better. He's going to dig through the middle, and he's going to be kind of more on that slant. So we should not have any issues with dying. And once again, we're going to wait for this guy to bonk so we can once again dig through or bash through there. And now we can officially end this level. Also, my throat kind of got weird right there. I've been doing a lot of like last minute like recording and like commentary stuff this today, and my voice is definitely feeling the effects of that. So hopefully things don't get too bad. I do have a trip coming up, which by the time you're watching this, I'm already on the trip, obviously, but you know, it's definitely something to be concerned with. So yeah, we're gonna build over here and then bash through here, and that should be the rest of the puzzle. These guys still working through here, and this basher should be done by the time they get there. So this is pretty much done, and as you can see, we did basically save all but 1 digger. So I guess that digger's there to kind of fool you, to think that, oh, okay, so we'll just use every lemming to dig twice. But no, you had to use 1 digger on that first lemming, and then that 1 digger on the other lemmings. So obviously there were still some tasks left over. But yeah, there we go. We solved this. This one was definitely a bit more difficult. Again, I'm not really a huge fan of the puzzles that kind of require, like, you know, just a small pixel of precision to solve. That's kind of one of the main problems I had with Triple Trouble, where it basically just, like, if you know, clicked your cursor, like, just a millisecond too late, you'd have to do the whole level again. But, you know, it is what it is. I don't like it, but, you know, it's just part of gaming back then. This is what we had. This is what we had to deal with. This kind of difficulty in these games. So there we go. That's level 3, and before we get to the another pretty difficult level, although maybe not as difficult as this one or level 2, we do get a bit of a breather, and that is in the form of level 4. So there we go. There's our stats. And we have our next level, Sunsoft Special level 4. We have 100 lemmings. We have to save all of them. This level, I'd say, is probably the most like a level you'd see on other difficulties. There is one little unique thing you're going to do here, but for the most part, it's pretty standard level. Just by looking at this for like a little bit, you can probably figure out what you need to do. I mean, those builders definitely give a big indication of what you might be doing. You just kind of have to do that building in a very unique way. So we're going to let our first guy become a floater so he can walk off and kind of work on the big staircase. And we're going to use a blocker here. Now I know what you're thinking, why would you do that? We need to save all of our lemmings, but we have some tools. You guys know how this works. We've done some things. So we know that we can save blockers if we're creative. And we're going to actually start building our bridge from here, which I know might seem kind of weird, because there's no way we're going to get on top of that big block, obviously. But there is a reason why we're doing this. Also, I went ahead and let that go so we could build that little staircase there to prevent any sort of lemmings from walking off, because that is something that would be a concern otherwise. And we're going to keep on building. We're going to kind of stretch out the staircase a little bit. And as you can see, we're kind of building into like the little bit of rock that's growing on the underside of the block. That's where we want to go. We want to go to where that rock is. So he's going to bonk his head against the rock. He's going to turn around. And we're going to actually try to bash through this. Now, we don't have any ground below us, so we'll have to do this a couple of times. But That's how we're going to get rid of that rock. And once we kind of get rid of that, we can keep building our staircase up. And from there, we should be able to get to a point where we can build ourselves to the very end. I know that kind of seems weird, like, well, why can't you just build to the, like, the lower block and then build up to that middle block and then build up to the next part? I think it's just too low for you to be able to do that. So I think this is kind of what you need to do as well. I think you also kind of need to do this to kind of mitigate the splat height as well. Because once you get rid of that blockers, obviously the lemmings are going to be walking off those platforms. So you kind of need to mitigate that too, although I think that shouldn't have been an issue regardless. But yeah, as you can see, that next block we're going to build up to, the one that's kind of on the left of the screen there, that's very high up, and I think if you tried to build a staircase from that middle block, there's no way you'd be able to get up there. Like, you'd have to use a bunch of extra staircases to kind of bonk up against the metal container, so we need to build all the way from here up to there, and then we can turn around and go inside the exit. And that's pretty much it. Like, again, it's a level that's very, very similar to other levels you've more than likely seen in other difficulties that we've done. It's definitely the most non-Sunsoft level in the Sunsoft levels, if that makes sense. But again, it is kind of clever a little bit. Like, it's clever, but in a very basic way, I think. I know that's my opinion, but I enjoyed it. This is probably my favorite level of the bunch, just because of that. The next level's kind of creative too, but it definitely requires some of that pinpoint precision that I dislike so much. So here, as you can see, we're going to mine under the blocker to set them free. All the lemmings are now going to walk to the end, and it's just a matter of building up to the exit, which we should have enough time to do. I know it looks like the clock is counting down, but because of all the lag we have, the clock is not actually advancing too far, so we'll have enough time to finish this. No problem whatsoever. But yeah, with that, we're going to be moving on to the final level of the game. Now, one thing I do kind of want to address very quickly, and I mean really, really quickly, there are multiple versions of Lemmings, and a lot of people have made that known. Heck, even the Genesis version of Lemmings has like an additional 30 levels, I think. I think there's some like Lemmings levels from other versions in the Genesis version, so it's not like, you know, 30 completely new levels, but you know, there are other versions of the game. I just chose the Super Nintendo version because I do not have the PC version anymore. And besides, even if I did, my computer's like way more advanced to even handle the, you know, the old hardware that was the initial Lemmings. And just the SNES version was the only version I had, so I kind of had to use this version to cover. And it's also a version I grew up with, too, and I feel like that was kind of more important. But, you know, maybe in the future I could always do some bonus content or something of other Lemmings levels from other versions. We'll just have to wait and see. And here we go, Lemmings Level 5, or Sunsoft Special 5. This level is, once again, a level where you need to use your tasks very well, because we do not have much to work with here. We only have 3 climbers, 4 builders, 1 basher, 2 miners, and 1 digger. So we're going to be using all of those tasks, and if you misuse any of those tasks, yeah, you're going to be doing this whole level over again. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually dig right at the top here, and you need to dig immediately. Like, you do not want the distance between basically where you ended and where you started to be that far. Like, you want the lemming to kind of be hanging off the edge there a little bit. Then, at some point, you need to make a second climber, probably around here. And the lemming kind of gets to that point over there, the digger. And then you want to do the bashing. This will allow you to get to the little empty space here. And this will also allow this lemming to kind of walk on through so he can continue doing his thing. This is where things are going to get a little tricky, because we're going to be kind of alternating tasks here. So we need this first lemming to build to the top of the arrow structure. But we need to do it before the second lemming, the follower lemming. We need to do that after the lemming gets to this point, past the thing, so the staircase doesn't block him and turn him around the other way. Then we're going to build a staircase, so he can build over there. He should stop like right at the very edge, so he can continue. And when he finishes, he's going to mine. And what we need to do now is we need to build over this mining hole here. And you have to build over this hole, and you have to do it with one bridge. If you don't, you have to do this entire level over. Like that. Once again, missed it by 1 pixel. Which sucks. I really, really hate that there's so many puzzles that kind of revolve around just like the slightest bit of timing, because what made that difficult is like you need the lemming to get close to your minor lemming before he starts building, but the trouble with that is if he's too close, he might turn the miner into a builder instead. Or in other cases, you may start building and the miner might destroy the structure too, so you just have to be very, very wary of that. So it may take you a couple of tries to kind of get the right system going, maybe get enough or just the exact distance you need to be away from each other. But it'll take you a few tries to get this right. But ultimately, this is about what you want to do. I'm trying to keep that lemming in sight. That should do it. I feel like I had that same exact distance earlier, but who knows, we might get lucky. I think we did. Yeah, I think we're good. And there we go. Okay, so we did that. Next up, we need to use this guy to dig, or build over to the exit, because he's going to be basically making a path there. And when this guy finishes mining, we're going to get him to mine down to where our lemmings are. And that's basically how we'll do this. Meanwhile, we need to turn another lemming into a climber, because we need to build up into this little mine shaft that we already built. Because otherwise, if we just let them keep walking, they'll be stuck in that little container. So we need to build up here into this. This could also be problematic if you don't time it right. I think we're good. Yes, that's going to be the solution. And there we go. The level is solved as long as the miner stops, which he just did. Okay, that was this level. So, again, you know, of the hard levels, this is probably the easiest, but again, it does require some just pixel-based timing, which I'm not incredibly a fan of, if I'm being quite honest. But yeah, there we go. All of our lemmings walking towards the end. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the Lemmings playthrough. We've solved every single level in the Super Nintendo version. It's been fun, it's been exciting. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. It's been a good time. A good time was had by all. Except all the lemmings that died along the way. Obviously, it wasn't fun for them. So yeah, we're going to have the credits next, and I guess because of that, I'll start kind of wrapping up my thoughts here. I'm really happy I decided to do this project, because this has been a lot of fun. I've seen a lot of people kind of enjoy this because, you know, it reminds them of playing this game when they were younger. There were a lot of people who had never heard or seen this game before and were interested just by the concept alone, and a lot of people jumped on that. So this project was like very well received by you guys, and that probably makes me the happiest, because, you know, I was, you know, admittedly, I wasn't entirely sure how this project was going to go. It was something very different from what I've done in the past, and, you know, it's also a game that was very special to me as a child, and I wanted to share that with you guys. So I'm glad that it took off well, and I'm glad you guys enjoyed it, because I had a blast playing it. And honestly, I would like to do more Lemmings games in the future. You know, I'm getting to the point where I'm about done with Mario Party. I'm about done with Mario Kart. You know, there are some weekend project openings that I could do. Like, you know, one cool new weekend project every year. And maybe that could be Lemmings. I mean, obviously there's other Mario spin-off games and stuff of that nature, other racing games I could cover, but, you know, I had fun with this, and it seemed like you guys really enjoyed it too, so if you want to see more Lemmings in the future, honestly, I would love to give that to you. As far as other Lemmings games, like I mentioned, there are other versions of this game. I'm not sure if I'm going to cover every single one of them, because it'll be a lot of doing the same levels over and over again. But, you know, maybe I could have, like, some sort of, like, extra feature or something where I cover levels that were unique to whatever version, what other versions exist. Like I said, there's a Genesis version, there's, you know, other PC versions. I feel like the PC versions are the ones that wouldn't feature any fresh content, but the Genesis version definitely does. And in addition to, like, other versions, there's obviously other Lemmings games. There was kind of an expansion to Lemmings called Oh No More Lemmings. I've heard a few people bring that up, and that could be something I'll cover in the future too, so that's something we can look at. There's Lemmings 2. I'm sure there's a bunch of other Lemmings types of games as well. So, you know, there's definitely a lot that can be done with this series. And I'll definitely look into that more. I'll definitely look into that more because, you know, like I said, I had a lot of fun with this, and I really enjoyed this playthrough. I hope you guys did as well. One last thing before I sign off with this. I want to give two very special shout-outs for basically kind of allowing me to embrace my love for this game. First one goes to my dad. He was the one who I played this game with a lot when I was younger, and, you know, I still have very fond memories of playing this game with him, like, at our computer. You know, almost every day we'd be looking at the game, trying to solve the levels and everything, and, like, he'd always humor my ideas, too. Like, he'd always be like, even if he knew the solution was wrong, he'd still humor me and, like, try my solutions or my suggestions, and, you know, that he made me, like, feel like I was a part of the gaming experience too, and that was really, really nice of him to do that. So I have a lot of fond memories of playing this game with him. So first big shout out goes to him. The second shout out I want to give is to a YouTube user named Roundthewheel. Roundthewheel, a long time ago when I was in college, I was basically, you know, looking into old computer games I used to play, because that's when Let's Playing was kind of at its height, and I was like, oh, I wonder if there's any, like, these old computer games I used to play, if there's, like, actual Let's Plays of them. And Lemmings was one of the first ones I actually searched, and I found his Let's Play. He played the Amiga PC version, which, you know, obviously not the Super Nintendo version like I played, but still, it was another game, another version of the game I played all the time. I think it was the same version that I did play with my dad all of those years ago, and it just was really nice to see the game again. And it was nice to see the game to the point where it even encouraged me to actually download a ROM and emulator. I know, shame on me, but during the college I did that, and I played through the game again, and I actually beat the game, and it was really cool to, you know, actually kind of get that inspiration to go back to an old childhood game that I never completed and actually completed again. So, you know, I want to give a huge thank you to Roundthewheel for kind of bringing Lemmings back into my life, because it was a very special part of my childhood, and, you know, it was nice to kind of remember that and then kind of, you know, get to actually play it again. And when I beat the game, I even shared it with my dad, and he was like, oh, wow, that's awesome. How are the rest of the levels? And I was like, yeah, they're pretty hard. I don't think we ever would have solved them back then, but don't worry, I did it. I did all the work. So yeah, it was just a really nice of him to do that. On his channel, he actually has a couple of other playthroughs too, to some of those other versions of Lemmings, and also some hacks of Lemmings too. So if you want to take a look at any more Lemmings content, before I get a chance to cover more, definitely consider checking him out. He has a lot of Lemmings playthroughs on his channel, and it's a very fun and interesting game. It's a game I love. It's very special to me, and I really, really wanted to share that with you guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed. That's going to do it for the Lemmings project. Thanks for watching, everybody. I will see you guys for my next project, hopefully soon. Later, folks.